Doris, welcome to the story. You know, way back in 1978, I was a sophomore in high school in the Seattle area and had a job as a busboy at Denny's on the weekends. One morning, an incredible thing happened. 3 players from the Seattle Supersonics basketball team came into our little restaurant. Their team was playing that night in the NBA Finals series against the Washington Bullets. If I'm remembering right, it was Dennis Johnson, Johnny Johnson, and Gus Williams. I think they had the Grand Slam breakfast, which I still recommend. I was in awe of them. They were super nice, super friendly. But sadly, since 2008, there have been only Sonics fans in the Seattle area. The team is gone, moved and given a new name, the Oklahoma City Thunder. But there is talk of bringing them back. And that's why this is our big story. The reason it's our big story is Seattle spent more than $1 billion to renovate the old Key Arena, and that's where the Blazers will play the Clippers tonight. And the NBA commissioner has mentioned Seattle several times when talking about expanding the league. No announcement so far, but we do have our incredible sports guy, Orlando Sanchez, there right now covering the game.
What a trip. NBA basketball back in Seattle. And let me set the scene here in Seattle. We've got the Space Needle over my shoulder, overlooking Climate Pledge Arena. Basketball here for the first time in 4 years with 2 NBA teams going head to head. And you got to go all the way back to 2008 to find the last time the Portland Trail Blazers played a game here. And that was against the Seattle Supersonics. And if you're wondering, the Sonics won that game. The leading scorer, none other than Kevin Durant. And if you're wondering, there is a Blazers connection to Seattle. There are many actually, but one sticks out, especially during media day, and that was with Gary Payton II. His dad, a legend, Gary Payton, a former Oregon State Beaver, Hall of Famer, and a Seattle Supersonics legend. He goes back. Those memories are flooding in. He's still suffering from an injury, still trying to get right, and man, he wishes he could play in this game.
I wish I can play. I'm trying to see if somehow, some way I can suit up just for like 30 seconds or something. But, you know, it's going to be dope to see the renovation of Key Arena and, you know, what they did, and it's going to bring back a lot of memories.
So it's the Blazers and the Clippers. Head coach Ty Lue and Chauncey Billups, they're buddies. They talked about playing this game during the summer, and now it's a reality. Game time is set for 7:30. And if you're wondering where to find it on TV, it won't be broadcast in the Portland area. But don't worry, we've got you covered. So stay tuned right here at 11 o'clock on KGW. Back to you.
All right, tonight's game in Seattle gives us the opportunity to look back at the old Blazers-Sonics rivalry. The two teams were separated by just 174 miles after all. For that story, we're going to head into the KGW vault. The teams played 192 games against each other before the Sonics vanished from the Northwest back in 2008. But the series between the teams was close. The Sonics hold a slight edge, 98-94. Rivalries can be fun during the regular season, but they are forged during the postseason. The Blazers and Sonics met 4 times in the playoffs, and they each won twice. The first playoff series between the teams was April of 1978. The previous year, Bill Walton led the Trail Blazers to its first and only NBA championship in just his 3rd season. And the team started red hot in '78, starting with 50 wins and 10 losses until Walton crumpled to the floor with a foot injury. The team struggled without Walton, but still finished the season with the best record in the league, earning them a first-round bye in the playoffs. Waiting for them in the second round, of course, the Sonics. With Walton still out of the lineup, Seattle won the first game, but then Walton returned from injury in game number 2. This is video from that game. Unfortunately, our footage does not show Walton playing. It was April 21st, 1978 at the Veterans Memorial Coliseum here in Portland. We don't have the video because he wasn't in the game very long. He played 15 minutes before leaving with, yes, another foot injury. This game was a close back and forth affair with the final minutes. Portland pulling away in the closing 90 seconds and winning the game 96-93. But it would be a final time Bill Walton wore the Blazers jersey. After the team lost the playoff series in 6 games, Walton demanded a trade, blaming the team for improper medical advice and care. It's kind of fun to see that. As the Walton era ended for Portland, the series was a turning point for the Sonics. They would go on to the NBA Finals in '78, losing in 7 games to the Bullets. But the momentum was there the next season, and in a finals rematch with Washington led by MVP Dennis Johnson, the Sonics won their first and only championship. Fast forward nearly 3 decades, and we find ourselves at another turning point for both teams, the 2007 NBA Draft. Not so much a rivalry playing out on the hardwood, but decisions made that night would influence the future of the franchises. The hype in Portland was high as the Trailblazers held the #1 pick in the draft, with Seattle right behind at #2. And the top 2 players in college at the time were the most highly sought after players since LeBron James.
Odom. You got to go, Greg Odom. Yeah. You have to.
No, you got to look at Durant. He's got the whole package. Odom. Definitely Odom.
Inside Odom. Most fans say the prospect of this super athletic man-child donning the Blazers red and black is just too tempting to pass up.
Bounce pass to Durant.
But others see Kevin Durant, the College Player of the Year as a freshman, as a superstar waiting to happen. This billboard on the Banfield Freeway asks drivers to honk once for Odom, twice for Durant, and it's generating plenty of noise.
Oh, hindsight. The debate was on, and yes, this still is painful for many of us. Greg Oden or Kevin Durant, the Blazers made up their mind thinking that it was going to be boom or boom. Neither player could turn out to be a bust, right? Right?
With the first pick in the 2007 NBA Draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Greg Oden from Ohio State University.
Well, that was an exciting night. But Greg Oden played 82 games with the Blazers and only 105 games in the total NBA. After 7 knee surgeries, his career was over. That left Kevin Durant for the Sonics, and what a promising career he had ahead of him. Seattle fans could feel it. But then the franchise was up and out, taking Durant with it to Oklahoma City, where he began his Hall of Fame level career for Sonics fans. What are your favorite memories of the Blazers and the Sonics and their rivalry? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to thestory@kgw.com or leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And now to politics. We're just 36 days away from the big election. The clock is ticking, and those ads are ramping up in our area. We're watching the race for Oregon governor closely, of course. A recent poll from the Oregonian shows it's neck and neck. There are 3 big players and 3 big spenders on the ballot. But the Oregonian poll shows it's turning into really a two-way race as October gets underway. Here's the latest. 32% of likely voters said they would choose Republican Christine Drazen. 31% chose Democrat Tina Kotek. And unaffiliated candidate Betsy Johnson brought in 18% of the support. It's worth noting that 15% of voters are undecided. Considering the poll's margin of error, plus or minus 4%, Drazen and Kotek are basically tied at the top. But undecided voters will be the key. And it's important to look at the sample size for the poll. It was about 600 likely voters. It's not a massive sample size, but the results are still significant. And they are right in line with a report we brought you a few weeks ago when we told you that the nonpartisan Cook Political Report listed the outlook of the governor's race as a top-up after initially listing it as a lean Democrat. This new poll from the Oregonian has to feel promising for the Drazen campaign as she looks to flip the GOP script in Oregon and become the first Republican governor here since 1987. The Oregonian attributes Drazen's good numbers to significant voter dissatisfaction with the way things are going now and Betsy Johnson's ability to draw votes away from Kotek. The poll showed some of the top issues that voters care about in this race. Some not so surprising, but it's what's not on the list that might have you scratching your head. Let's go over what is on the list. And again, this is taken from a sample of 600 likely voters. Homelessness, crime, gun safety, drug use, climate change, affordable housing, and the state's Democratic leadership top the list. There are a few big national issues that you don't see here. And the Oregonian says, according to their poll, abortion and inflation do not appear to be playing a huge role here in Oregon. The biggest issues for likely voters, according to the poll, homelessness. Let's take a look at voter registration numbers here in Oregon. Unaffiliated voters make up the majority with over 1,031,000. Democrats not far behind, 1,011,000. Republicans are third with just over 729,000 members. One of the most interesting things found in the poll so far, unaffiliated voters favor Christine Drazen slightly more than Betsy Johnson, even though Johnson is the one running as the unaffiliated candidate. So what do you think? Do you agree that things are neck and neck? Or do you think a sample size of 600 likely voters isn't enough to give us a clear picture? Once again, we want to hear from you. Send us an email to thestory@kgw.com or leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. We're not surprised by homelessness popping up as the #1 issue for many voters in Oregon. It is something that we've seen in our communities every time we walk out the door. Blair Best covers the homeless beat for us, and over the next couple of weeks, she's going to be taking your questions straight to the candidates for governor to see how they would handle the crisis if elected. Today, Blair sat down with Republican candidate Christine Drazen, who, as you just saw, is seeing promising results at the polls so far.
We have a crisis in our streets that is driven by our homeless issues. Of course, Oregonians are feeling it.
Republican candidate for governor Christine Drazen believes the solution to this crisis starts at the state level. And if elected, she will declare a homelessness state of emergency.
Handing this out down to municipalities, I don't think is the best approach for full responsibility. If you think about it, homeless populations, by the nature of being unhoused, they really do move between jurisdictions.
What tools will you use specifically that, say, we aren't using already?
You know, the opportunity to provide a legal basis for communities moving forward with their response to homelessness, I think is very, very important. I think a lot of communities, if you talk to local mayors, county commissioners, they feel like their hands are tied today. But it will be support for shelter space, it will be additional investments, and it will be support for the workforce that will back up the mental and behavioral health needs that we have as a state.
And where will that money come from?
You will see from in my first budget a prioritization of that with dollars that are otherwise being directed right now to programs that are not as essential and critical. So we're talking general fund support.
On your campaign website, you say that you're aiming to make homelessness rare and temporary, while some of your competitors are aiming to get rid of it altogether. Why is it that homelessness won't be going away under your leadership?
Yeah, the approach to homelessness, I think, needs to be an approach that's long-term. There are no magic bullets to, in some cases, the human condition. And we have programming right now within the metro area that local jurisdictions have adopted that I'm really strongly supportive of. And that program right now is called Built for Zero. And the concept behind this, it really is that they are able to better understand who's on their streets and better understand what services and supports they need to transition from being houseless to being fully stabilized and able to, contribute to their own lives and their best future again.
She will also work to repeal Measure 110, which decriminalized possession of certain hard drugs.
Legalizing Measure 110 was a mistake for Oregonians from my perspective now that we've seen it on the ground.
And so there is a lack of addiction treatment facilities in Portland. Yeah. What will you do to increase those facilities and those services?
Right now we have the ability to work alongside our nonprofit partners and others to ensure that they have the support that they need to continue to expand services.
And so what specifically will you do at the statewide level to increase these services?
We have got to better understand what's available right now, where our opportunities are to get people into treatment immediately, and then make the decision for, okay, what services are lacking, what else do we need to expand, where do we need to expand it?
If homelessness is someone's primary issue, primary concern going into this election, why should they vote for you?
I am the only candidate in this race that has not been a part of the problem for the last 10, 20 years that got us here.
We also talked about her plans to increase affordable housing and her aim to fully fund police departments. You can watch the full interview on our website. Now, if elected, she would be Oregon's first Republican governor in nearly 40 years. We're talking with all three candidates about this crisis. Tomorrow, we sit down with Betsy Johnson, and next week, Tina Kotek. Blair Best, KGW News.
Still to come on The Story.
At first she thought it was my sister, but then discovered that it was a random person, a random woman in her bed. She yelled at them to get out.
A woman previously accused of breaking into a home allegedly does it again. The district attorney says she needs mental health treatment, but she refuses, and the system in place cycles her from a jail cell to the streets and apparently back into strangers' homes. When the story continues. The strange, sad case of 54-year-old Terryzinser continued this weekend. She's the Portland area woman who the district attorney says needs mental health treatment but refuses it. And for some reason, the system does not seem to be able to force her to get help. So instead, she's racking up a series of arrests for breaking into the homes of strangers and sleeping in their beds. The latest happened around 4:30 Friday afternoon at an apartment on Northeast 17th near Northeast Broadway. Drew Doty told me his mom came home from work Friday to find a stranger in her bed.
So she unlocks the door to find a person sleeping in her bedroom under her blanket. At first she thought it was my sister, but then discovered that it was a random person, a random woman in her bed. She yelled at them to get out, then realized that it was better to just leave the apartment and call the police.
Which she did. Drew said that his mom then went back in to check on things and found the woman was hiding in a closet wearing his mother's clothes. So she left again. When the police got there, the woman, Zinser, had barricaded herself in the bathroom. Here's Drew Doty again.
The police then battering rammed the door down and took the woman away in handcuffs. I would say it was a pretty distressing situation for everybody involved. And definitely not the kind of thing that you expect to come home to, but in Portland, it is seeming more and more commonplace.
And I think that's sad, but I gotta tell you, it definitely feels true. What's also sad is the pathetic way the justice system has failed to get Zinser help. Take a look at her run-ins with police just this summer. On July 21st, she was cited by police for theft in Gresham, and the DA's office did not charge her with the crime. On August 13th, she was cited by police for criminal trespass, and the DA's office did not charge her with the crime. On September 12th, she broke into the home of Kelsey Smith, an act caught on home security video. At first, the DA's office said it would not charge her with the crime. Then the DA said she needed mental health help, not jail time. And later, when it became clear she was not getting either, the office then did press charges, and she was indicted last week. On September 19th, a warrant went out for her arrest after she skipped a hearing in Clackamas County that was set to figure out if she was mentally fit to proceed with a separate theft case against her there. On September 27th, she was arrested for theft and disorderly conduct and giving false information, and the DA's office did not press charges. She was released from jail. 3 days later, September 30th, she was arrested after apparently breaking into the apartment on Northeast 17th and sleeping in the mother's bed. Can you imagine coming home to that? A stranger not only in your home, but in your bed?
Definitely, everybody's a little shaken up about it. Definitely violating to have somebody come into your home and to find somebody in your bed. So we spent the night basically sanitizing the entire apartment, and now it's a matter of calling police and insurance and hoping, you know, everything can get solved and that we can press charges and have this woman put away.
And that might be what it finally takes to get her help. Zinser was supposed to be in court today, but sadly, instead she's being held in an isolation cell in the jail. The jailers report in court documents that she's screaming and yelling and swearing at them and pounding on the cell door and spitting all over the windows and door of the cell. Here's my opinion on this. Terryzinser is a sad but perfect example of the broken system. She's acting out, getting arrested, getting released, doing it all over again. She has an extensive record of charges in the criminal justice system. She was charged with 16 misdemeanors in 2018 alone, for example. That should have been a red flag that she needed help. Someone should have stepped in. And yet, as best I can tell, she did not get any help. The justice system in Multnomah County does have a mental health court, and I'm told that it's really quite good. It's focused on people who have mental health issues and committed a crime. But the people taking part in that have to agree to be in the program and have to agree to get help. And when you have someone like this who, for whatever reason, will not get help, there's just nothing for them. And I think that needs to change. There should be something in our system that flags those people early and gets them treatment one way or another. And what about the community? What about all those people who've had their lives interrupted by Terryzinser? Drew Doty and the others who don't feel quite as safe anymore. Who's looking out for them? What about their rights? It's awful that Terryzinser is in an isolation cell tonight. Lots of experts will tell you that's damaging even for people without mental illness. But I don't know where else she could be held right now. I also think it's lucky that she did not get hurt by a terrified homeowner discovering her in their bed. She's being held now finally without bail, and she's going to have a court hearing tomorrow to see if she can aid and assist in her own defense. If she can't, she'll be sent to the Oregon State Mental Hospital. But as we've told you before, that place is full, and the average wait is something like 40 days to get in, which means she'll be sitting in a jail cell waiting to get the help she so obviously needs. Well, that's my opinion. What do you think? Send me an email. You don't have to agree with me. The story is thestory@kgw.com or call us. Our phone number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Still ahead on the story. There was a lot that happened over the weekend in the Portland area, both good and bad. We'll recap what you missed right after the break. Here's a look at what you missed this weekend. 4 people were killed in Portland within a span of just 24 hours. Within hours of each other on Friday, 2 people were stabbed to death in Old Town. Portland police arrested suspects in both cases. Early Friday, a man was shot and killed near Southeast Stark and Burnside. And early Saturday morning, a man was found dead at Northeast Sandy and 162nd. An arrest was made in the first case, but not the second. Also over the weekend,
cars resting on rims was a common sight in the Roseway neighborhood Sunday morning.
To my car, like with all the neighbors down our street, stabbed, slashed.
Mike Hill's car is one of more than 50 targeted in a recent string of vandalism.
That's my wife's work car. If they did it again tonight, she'd have to wait a month before I could get another set of tires.
In Portland's living room, hundreds of people came together to call attention to the death of a 22-year-old, Mahsa Amini, who died in Iran last month after police arrested her for improperly wearing a hijab, which is a traditional headscarf worn by Muslim women.
Justice for Iran!
After a while, people took to the streets to peacefully demonstrate.
Women love freedom!
This protest, attendees say, is just one of many that happened around the world on Saturday.
It was just the last straw for everyone. Everyone across the world, all the Persians, are just coming together, asking the world to hear us, support us, and just shed a light on what's been happening in Iran.
We're super pumped up right now. Energy, runners and supporters are out in droves. It's wild out there. It's a lot of fun, and we're feeling great.
As marathon runners came back by at the 8-mile mark, they got a boost from the crowd. And not long after, the top half marathon runners crossed the finish line.
Our half marathon winner, Chris Maxwell, 109.12 unofficially.
Congratulations, Chris. I ran the marathon. I survived. The hills were brutal, worse than I thought, but it was a delightful day. It was well organized. The people were fantastic. You should do it next year with me. We'll be right back after this. That's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. I'll see you tomorrow.
This